Oh, I became a member very early when I was a graduate student, probably around 1980.
I believe I first went to a meeting in the early 1980s. I joined ATBC in 1980. Of course, an important thing to realize is that it wasn't called ATBC then, it was ATB, Association for Tropical Biology. And so clearly an interesting change that's taken place is the move to ATBC from ATB.
My first trip to the tropic was 1985, and my very first ATBC meeting I think was 1986. So I've been attending ATBC meetings for, almost 30 years.
My first ATBC meeting was in the 80s when I was still as a PhD student. And for me, it's the best way to communicate my research. I am tropical biologist, tropical ecologist, and represent my major association in the world where we can find colleagues working in my field.
For me personally, I've been going to ATBC meetings since I was a graduate student. I think my first meeting was in 1996 or 1997, I can't remember when, but I've always felt that ATBC is my home society.
The first meeting that I ever attended of the ATBC was in 1997 in Costa Rica, and I have learned a lot throughout those 20 years that I have attended meetings of the ATBC. So both in terms of science, every time I come to a meeting, I learn a lot, and I go back home filled with new ideas.
So how long I've been an ATBC member, I don't know, but my first experience with ATBC was at the 1996 meeting that was held jointly with the Ecological Society of America, and I think it was also with the American Society of Naturalists, and it was in Rhode Island. But I remember being a new graduate student, not knowing very many people, and kind of being excited to meet all these new people, but also finding it kind of scary with just so many people around that I didn't know and making my way. So I think that's one of the reasons why I think the mentoring program will be so helpful.
Well, I went to my first ATBC meeting in 1997, I think. I was invited to be a speaker in a symposium by Dr. John Kress. And what I saw about ATBC that was very special was that it was a meeting in which you could walk down the hallway and see the big names in our field, and instead of having to look at them from afar and wish you could go talk to them, sit down, enjoy a cup of coffee with them, and talk to them in a very relaxed, casual way. And that those people, those big names that at other conferences you don't see very much, and as parts of other societies you may not get to interact with, they're there, they're giving talks, they're meeting with students. And I had an opportunity to meet those names that before I'd only seen as citations on articles.
The first meeting of the ATBC in which I participated was back in 1996 when I was finishing up my MSc. And as I became a much more frequent visitor of assistant of the meeting, I started become also much more engaged in the activities that the ATBC was doing. So
I've been a member. I think I joined in 2006, so I'm certainly not a long-term member because ATBC is now over 50 years old. So I don't think we probably do have a few people who've been members for perhaps many decades. But so for me, it's 2006, and I became interested particularly after they established the Asia Pacific chapter in 2006, and then I went to the very first meeting of the chapter in India in 2007.
I've been a member since 2008, and from the first time in the meeting in Suriname, I fell in love with ATBC, mainly because there are people from all over the tropical world and people who are here to share their experiences, their knowledge, and their ideas.
Yeah, I joined ATBC in 2006 when the society met in Kunming in China. And since then I have come for most of the conference annually, so it's already more than 10 years of membership and you know, being part of the community.
Let's see, I was thinking about this earlier, my first ATBC was in Mexico, actually 10 years ago in Morelia. So I came as a graduate student, and that's when I got to meet my mentors and kind of get indoctrinated into the community here. And I think
yes, I have attending in the last decade, I would say, all the time, taking part in symposium and offer talks, and this meeting is the most important meeting for tropical conservation biologists, because you can see what people are discussing, what people are thinking, and the major problems you are facing as tropical biologists. And now it has a much more applied perspective. It's a trend that I have seen in the last decade, and the delegates and the ATBC community is much more and more engaged to transfer science, scientific-based information to decision makers.
ATBC has really been for me a very important source of networking, of getting to know what the other people are doing, and to receive a lot of information in a very short period of time, and also to meet amazing people that are doing really very interesting research, but they are also very open and very friendly, and are eager to discuss and eager to interact with young people, with old people. And I see that that is one of the most appealing things for me of the ATBC.